All right, well, welcome to our third in the Women's Wellness Forum by Fairfield County Look. We are in partnership with BioT, who has been phenomenal. They are innovators in hormone optimization, and Glenville Medical Concierge Care. Thank you, Dr. Kraus and team. You guys are amazing. Today we have, I'll just go through our speakers and then introduce each one separately. Kim Nichols, who is the famous cosmetic dermatologist, and we have Dr. Fiona Lovely, who is a Gen X expert in perimenopause, and she has Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast. She's going to be talking about brain health, and we've got her on Zoom coming up. Elizabeth DeMeo, who is the physician liaison at BioT, is going to talk about hormones in the brain and body connection. And Dr. Katie Vedasti from ONS is the director of ONS Women's Sports Medicine Specialist, elbow, knee, and shoulder surgeon. Katie's going to talk to us about bone health and exercises. Erica Kraus will conclude the event, and she is an internal medicine specialist in integrative medicine and metabolic and nutritional medicine. And she's going to talk about integrative medicine and a patient's health. Our sponsors are Nichols MD of Greenwich. Everybody has a little chapstick on their at their place. And Roman Empire Farms CBD. Our friends over there, stop by. We've got some, I think everybody's been buying their CBD. It feels so good. So I had it last night to sleep. That's why I woke up so chipper this morning. Anyway, Kim, come on up and we'll do a question and answer. And do you have,
where do you want me?
Microphone. Grab this.
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Morning. So we have lots to chat about on skin and menopause.
Yeah, so Elaine started this when we said hello to each other in the morning. She said, yes, everybody wants to know what's about to happen to them.
Exactly. So tell us.
Yes. No, I'm going to be the bearer of good news, but let's just start with, statistics in terms of, this is a women's wellness group, and of course, the loss in estrogen unfortunately it begins starting in our early 20s even, and we start to lose 1% of collagen and elastin per year, which then jumps in our 40s, in our mid-late 40s, then jumps to 3 to 5% per year. So, that's just what happens. So, our job is to help regenerate that collagen and elastin that we're losing that causes us to start seeing those signs of aging.
What do you suggest? I mean, what are the steps one takes starting in your, let's say, your 30s and leading all the way into your 50s?
Well, I couldn't be a dermatologist without preaching about sun protection. And we all know, your kids, your teenagers are actually doing a way better job than we did, thanks to education and everything. And because it really starts, you guys have heard about the fact that one bad sunburn when you're a teenager or little can increase your chances of skin cancer by 50 to 100%. But it also, of course, makes you age quicker. So the kids are learning that lesson because, of course, they don't want to look old too young.
That's right.
So that's the first step. And the other step is, starting to do preventative things. Yes, I'm a cosmetic dermatologist, but I'm a dermatologist first. So things like, protecting your skin, and we'll talk about some products that could be really helpful in starting even in your 20s is really important. And also doing things step by step. So, our mothers or grandmothers, they would kind of wait until they were in their 60s and then either do nothing or need a big, facelift or something because they weren't doing preventative steps along the way. So the good news is now we have treatments and procedures that are non-invasive. We're not talking surgery that you can start doing in your 30s that will help slow that progression, that aging, and keep you looking your best, the whole time.
On that train of thought, would you say Botox is step one? Where do you go with fillers, with threading? What do what are the steps one takes to be beautiful and keep your skin just perfect?
Well, I mean, I love Botox, and Botox is now, more universal in terms of people understanding that there's a huge preventative piece to Botox. So it's not about looking like somebody else or looking frozen. It's about preventing, kind of those muscle movements and stuff from getting too strong, so you get those etched in lines. So yeah, we're seeing people start earlier because, these muscle movements that we have in our face are also very genetic. So I'm a brooder, so I'm always kind of brooding. So, even in my early 20s, I was starting to get, sort of these deep frown lines. So a lot of times it's not just about age, it can just be about your natural genetics and just kind of, softening those movements. Botox is also big on skin quality. So, we use Botox now in terms of helping to decrease pore size, in what's called microtox or baby tox, if you guys have probably read about those in the beauty magazines and such. So really that's the way that I use Botox, and I use it on my patients, which is in more of a kind of a preventative, slowing way.
And so if somebody were to say, okay, like me,
yes,
I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, here I am, 55 years old, lost all my hair, FYI, just so you guys know. Everything's crashing down around me. I'm hitting menopause. I'm coming into your practice, I say, Dr. Kim, what do I do? What would you suggest the steps are just to, kick it all off?
Right. I mean, I think the first step is kind of a full body assessment. It's not, we talk about the face all the time, but, dermatologists, it's hair, skin, and nails, and it starts with the scalp.
Right.
It starts with hair. That's a whole another subject about premenopause and menopause that we can get into, but also looking at the face, the neck, the chest. Everybody talks about the fact that their neck is aging much faster than their face, and that's the truth. Our neck is thinner skin, things like that. So it's first with kind of a full body assessment, and then looking at what are the most important things for you to start improving or to correcting, and that really starts with a good skincare regimen at home. I always tell people, if you're going to invest in procedures with me, it's like buying an expensive car, but if you don't wash it, then you're not maintaining it. So there's where the skincare regimen comes in terms of being so important. So we're talking about things like, for instance, O-therapy, which is a non-invasive skin tightener that triggers our own collagen, because that's the aim, is we're trying to fight that decrease in collagen elastin with things that trigger collagen elastin. So those are sort of some of the skin tightening procedures. I have another one called the Granite Secret, which you'll have to come to my office to find out what that is. But again, a non-invasive treatment that works very well in terms of tightening the pores, tightening some of the fine lines. A lot. The nice thing about the kind of I would call it a natural at Nichols treatment plan that we have is, it's a years long type of thing. So it's not just a one-time thing. It's all the different things that we can do along the way, along the years, to keep you looking your best.
So there are ways to step into it without going whole hog, oh my gosh, because having not done a lot of this myself, but you can go step by step into it without jumping into the deep end.
100%. And
Okay.
My staff is really good at, we're very good hand holders. So we're very good about, kind of taking you through those steps. And we know, especially somebody who's new to these things, it's not about jumping in, full feet at the same time. It's about taking those little baby steps along the way. And we really make an effort to kind of guide you through that, giving you really a treatment plan that goes through, the years about little things that you can do with us at home to keep everything, going in the right direction.
Right.
Up, not down.
Exactly. What about the neck?
Yes.
Let's talk about that, because they all say, I haven't gotten it yet. Anybody here have neck issues? Tell us about your neck, what one does with the neck now.
Right. Well, last year, 2021 was actually, in my business, the year of the neck. So necks are very, very big, because everybody is taking care of their face so well, but then, not really paying attention to their neck. And of course, you can kind of see that disparity. And because the neck skin is naturally and the décolleté thinner, it's going to age at twice the rate. So things like everything you put on your face, put on your neck and décolleté. So we try to do videos and stuff on our website and our YouTube where we show, slathering on, let's say, the antioxidant, making sure that you do that to your neck and décolleté. Because all of you guys who are, going to Florida or even outside golfing in the summer, that whole area is getting hit by the sun too. And then things that are more kind of skin tightening. So procedures that we do, like Botox can tighten, neck skin that's getting a little loose, and therapy, other non-invasive treatments that can help with the neck to keep it. Because again, neck skin is one of those things where you definitely want to keep up with it, because if it does go, kind of too far, as it were, then it does become more of a surgical fix that, we don't really need to do anymore. In fact, facelift and neck lifts have gone down by like 50-60% already, because we have so many things non-invasively that people can do to prevent it from getting that way.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, that's good for people.
Yes.
Because you
There's
probably
hope.
are elongating instead of going in for one fell swoop.
Right.
I know my mother-in-law who's had 2 facelifts and looks gorgeous, but I've got to say, it was weeks at a time that she would go in and be gone. Her family would go, "Where are you?" A lovely hotel in New York City.
With 2 nurses. Poor lady.
But she looked gorgeous. Anyway, and she still does. That's the beauty of this. I mean, do you think when we all get to 86, 87, with all of these, kind of procedures that are over time, can one age, is that a proven thing? Can you look as good in your 80s?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're starting to see it now in women in their 60s, because these things have kind of been out for. Botox has been out for 35 years, believe it or not, if you can believe it. But so we're starting to see that already, where the women who've done these preventive measures along the way are looking better. So who knows?
Right.
We could be 100 and giving up like this. We'll look great when they put us in our graves. So.
That's great. Okay. Now, what about, so collagen, retinoids, peptides, tell us about those, those different things that we all read about.
Right. I think we're all busy mothers and, employers, and everybody's so super busy. So, the biggest thing I get in the office is, "Doc, I love you. I know you have so many great recommendations, but I can't do 9 steps in the morning, 9 steps at night. I can barely, get myself into bed at night." And believe me, I am that person too. So, I talk about, of everything that you do in terms of skin products, what's the most important? So, if you've been to my office, you've probably heard me talk about the fact that, I call it the trifecta, which is basically, in the mornings an antioxidant, right? So a vitamin C and E, fighting against not just the sun, but, the environmental damage and everything that we encounter.
And is that in a lotion, or is that in a supplement?
Like a serum.
A serum.
Yeah.
Okay.
So vitamin C is great in terms of ingesting for other things, but for skin, it's been shown that topically is most important in terms of that type of protection. And then, of course, daily sunscreen. And, there's really, really nice ones now that are not chalky, that you can use under makeup. I have a brightening one now that I have, that I have under my makeup that feels great. So that's really important, because I know a lot of us still think that, we only need the sunscreen when we're outside or playing golf or on the beach. So that's the first 2 things in the morning. And then at night, some sort of retinol. And I know, you guys have all heard this, but retinol is the #1 anti-aging ingredient for a reason, because it helps regenerate those cells again and get them turning over, in terms of, the anti-aging factor. And there's many different percentages of them. Some people have gotten into, issues where they use kind of the acne retinoid creams, which, like burned your skin off and irritate your skin, so then they just were scared of retinol for the rest of their life. But there's a lot of very low percentages ones. We say even if you can only use retinol once a week, it's better than nothing. So, those are really the 3, major factors. Peptides are also great because they help to rebuild sort of the protein and amino acids that are the factors in collagen. So if you could add something and make it, 4 things, that would be great. But, those are the 3 major things that are most important.
And when you're do those need to be prescribed? Some of the stronger ones do. So we would come into you and you'd say, okay, this and this is a prescription for it, or is there something over the counter that you recommend? How does that all work?
Right. Well, I mean, they're not necessarily prescriptions, but they should be medical grade products. So for instance, the main product line that I support in my office is SkinCeuticals, and they use kind of some medical grade percentages. Mm-hmm. The thing with the ones over the counter, they can smell, or even like a La Mer, a $500 cream, God bless you if you use it, but they're not allowed per FDA to use percentages that are that effective. So for instance, a vitamin C over the counter, even in a department store, can only go up to about 2%. Okay. Whereas, with the SkinCeuticals or something like that, it can go up to 10%. So there is that factor. But not necessarily prescription ones like you would use for acne. That's not necessary.
Right. Because in the old days, I remember there was something that you had to get.
Retinol.
Prescription, the Retinol.
Yeah.
Now, does that still exist?
It does. Rarely used anymore, but it does, when kids use it for acne and things like that. But for anti-aging or even for hormonal acne in women, for adult women, it's a little too strong and harsh. Yeah. Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we discussed antioxidants. So I've got here vitamin C, which we talked about, E, D, and A. What do all of those do? D is the sunshine, right?
Right. So, D is super important. I'm sure Katie's going to talk a lot about that. Super important. And of course, people get fearful because they feel like with the sunscreen on a daily basis, they're not going to get enough. But it's actually been shown that you will, still get what you need. And that if you do need some vitamin D supplementation, it's safer to get that orally, but still use your sunscreen. So, you don't have to make that trade-off if that's an issue.
Got it. Great. Light therapy.
Well, light therapy is good for everything. And there's, LED lights that have red light, amber light, blue light. So, for instance, if you've seen those LED lights, there's ones that you kind of lay down in, and then there's ones that you can kind of put on like a cap that we actually promote because you can do other things. And LED light is important because it's anti-inflammatory. Mm-hmm. So red light is anti-inflammatory and helps with regenerating collagen. And blue light is super important if you have some acne issues. And again, a whole nother subject that is very in tune to menopause is hormonal adult female acne. Because every third patient of mine who comes in is like, why am I 45 and I'm still getting acne? And that is because we're always going through hormonal changes, unfortunately, for women. So that's a whole nother thing, but that can definitely help with that type of acne also.
Yeah. I do the red light in a cap every night, and oh my God, it's 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And it puts me in the best mood. I've got to say, I think
it's also
it's really mood enhancing. I mean, I go to sleep afterwards, but I got to say, I feel good. It's really great stuff.
And it's also been shown to be helpful for your immune system.
Yeah.
I mean, these days we need all the immune.
That could be because I haven't been sick at all.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's really an amazing. I've got to say, it's this red cap. And it's like a little helmet, and it's the best feeling.
And it's also used for hair loss too.
Yeah, and for the hair loss. Yeah. I haven't gotten much hair, but I gotta say it's been great for my mood.
Top the other things.
Exactly. Let's see. Let's see. But do we have any questions? Let's see if we.
Do any of the at-home light therapies work?
They're great for. It's going to be something that you use sort of as an adjunct. So, doing those, like we promote one that's nice because it has a, you can kind of put it on your head without having to lay down and you can do your other business. So 20 minutes, 3 times a week, 3-4 times a week, has been shown to really help, especially if you have some issues, rosacea, being a condition where people get that redness, which is kind of an inflammatory condition, really helps with that if you can add that to kind of your home thing while you're watching TV or doing something with the kids.
Anybody else?
I think we answered a lot of questions.
We did. I think we flew through that. Do you have any other thoughts?
Well, I'd love to talk about. Maybe we'll do this on the next series, talking about things like hair loss, and other things that pertain to menopause and premenopause, because I know these are also conditions that people come in with. So
just to quickly on hair loss. I mean, I've lost, as you know, all my hair. But there are women who, your hair gets thinner.
Right.
What do you suggest? I mean, just as that's starting to happen, what does one do? Because I've had so many people say to me, what did you do? And I'm like, I got a wig, but what should one do? Because your hair's you're not going to lose all your hair. I mean, not everybody's going to lose all their hair, but what would you suggest just as a preventative measure if one could?
I mean, I would say the first thing to do is to go to your dermatologist. And I'm not just saying that because there's all different types of reasons for hair loss. Yours was different from somebody else's that might just be kind of, age-related, type of diffuse hair loss. The reason is because, as you guys know, there's just so much on the market there that's, promising this and that, and it's a miracle. And, hair loss is one of the most devastating things that can happen to women, also to men. But coming in just to get a real diagnosis first before you jump into all these potions and lotions, I think is the first step for sure.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think there are injected. You can also do injections, right? I've
Yep.
done the PRP.
Yeah.
But I think I did it way too late. I mean, it's funny. I didn't really notice it, and then all of a sudden, and my life was super stressful at that point. I think everybody's lives are stressful, but if you're managing your stress, you can, then try to prevent the hair loss and manage it in that way, where I think the PRP earlier on would be a way to go.
Yeah, and I think, whatever it ends up being in terms of what the diagnosis is, it's I find that it's so funny, getting a diagnosis or finding out what's going on early actually reduces people's stress and then of course contributes to the success of whatever it is, their hair coming back, because a lot of the stress is the not knowing.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's the trying all these different things and the not knowing. So I think that, that initial step early on is always going to be, the best thing to start with.
Right. Makes sense.
What do you recommend for somebody 28 years old who all of a sudden is very, very itchy and scratches and to the point of it's, welts and whatever? And interestingly enough, this person, my son,
I figured it was somebody
got
that.
the Moderna shot.
Say again.
He had gotten the Moderna shot. Now, I don't know if that's
It's related.
related to it, but he is just, going crazy with the itching. He's looked at the food, as far as allergies. So what, should he go to a dermatologist or?
I mean, I think he should probably go to a dermatologist first.
Yeah, he did that.
Yeah, and to see if there's some sort of, skin root to it. But it ends up usually being, a kind of a coordination with an allergist perhaps, and looking at those two different factors. Stress, of course, is a huge cause of pruritus, which is, kind of all over body itching. Yeah. So, really having kind of a comprehensive approach will probably be the best way in terms of him getting to the bottom of what's causing it. Yeah.
Anybody else?
I have one question. I've had a couple of friends do the all therapy.
Yep.
And I agree with you, it's not invasive, it's not surgery, but what they went through sounded horrible. Painkillers, you're out for the day, and maybe a little more. Vomiting because of the painkillers, so you're taking whatever you take to not vomit, but they still did. Sounded terrible, so it kind of does sound invasive. Is it always that way?
No, because we don't use painkillers. So we do a ton of vote therapy at my office, and we use, because I'm with you, I mean, painkillers, you gotta get somebody to drive you home, you're nauseous, it's just a whole, downhill slope. So we use laughing gas. So it's called Pronouns, we use laughing gas like you use the dentist, works like magic, and in 5 minutes you're driving home, no problem. So, and we do, moral therapies in Connecticut than anybody else. So, and we've had great success with the laughing gas. So, tell them to come to me. Nothing.
Oh, and congratulations.
What's it called? All therapy?
What is that?
All therapy,
Oh.
like a ULTH. Yeah.
And what is that?
So it's a type of energy. It's a device, looks like a laser sort of, where it's called microfocus ultrasound. It basically triggers deep collagen and elastin protection in the layer underneath that. It's called the SMAS that surgeons are picking up when they're doing facelifts. So that's the layer that starts to break down as we get older. So we're trying to trigger that new collagen in that area. But you feel it. You feel it. So we do, at our office, we don't want anybody to be in pain. So the laughing gas, it really, I have a lot of patients who are like, Dr. Nichols, can I purchase this and take this to my house? And I'm like, no, I don't think you can. But it really, that and numbing cream, and we had no problem.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, well, and then that's one of the steps to avoid having to do the whole surgery and everything.
Right.
So
Kind of
once
doing
you
that
start
every
doing
2 years or so, year and a half.
Right.
So I do it, well, one of my physician assistants does it on me every year because I'm there.
Mhm.
But yeah, every year and a half, 2 years.
And
is
you
usually-
start to see it break down then after a year or so, you start to see kind of your
It's
skin
slow. Most of my patients will kind of do it every year. Just they're like, oh no, we want to keep it up and not let it start to go on the other side. But it's very gradual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool,
Yeah.
love it. Well, congratulations on your Fairfield office opening up.
Thank
We're
you,
excited
thank you,
about that.
thank
Your
you.
Stanford place is phenomenal.
Yeah, thank you. May 2022. So if anybody is in Westport or Fairfield area, you won't have to come down.
All Fairfield County.
Yeah.
We love it. Well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much
Thank
for
you
coming.
guys. Have a great day.
We appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.
Okay. Dr. Fiona Lovely is a physician with specialties in functional medicine, functional neurology, and restorative endocrinology. Her practice focus is to find the root cause of disease, reaching all aspects of health and making space for wellness. She has lectured on the topics of women's health, hormone balance, and brain function extensively. She is the author and host of a popular long-running podcast on the passage of perimenopause called Not Your Mother's Menopause. Nearly 1 million people around the world downloaded the podcast, listening in to learn about the physical, mental, and spiritual journey of menopause. She's been called the hormone oracle and the fixer of weird shit, a disruptor of unhealthy patterns in the body and the mind, an agent provocateur in the arena of women's healthcare for nearly 20 years. Her mission is to share info and empower women and pull back the curtain to reveal the goodness that is possible at midlife. So I'm going to let you take it from here.
Thank you, Elaine, for that wonderful introduction. And I have to say, thank you to Dr. Nichols. That was so informative. I've always thought if I wasn't doing what I was doing, I'd be a dermatologist. So that was fun to listen to. Thank you. Now, can somebody let me know that you guys can see me and hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I cannot see you, but I imagine you're all gorgeous. Okay, so I have the task today of talking about brain health for women, specifically at midlife. And this is a passion project for me. And this is normally a 60-minute presentation that I'm going to try to pack into 20. So I think what I'll do is just sort of give an overview. And Elaine has asked me if I would answer some questions. So I'll make sure to leave a little bit of time for that. So can anybody relate to the term pandemic brain? Not just me? Okay, so after sort of the initial parts of 2020, I found myself like my brain wasn't connected to my mouth. And as you'll soon figure out, words are my art. And I was really struggling. And I thought, well, what the heck is going on? I have the tools to figure this out. So with being concerned about how well my own brain was functioning, plus a family history of Alzheimer's and dementia, I set about figuring it out. And what I developed was something called the Brain Health Matrix, which I'm going to share here with you in a moment. And I'll sort of quickly go over the 8 parts of the Brain Health Matrix. And then I'll take some questions if there are any. So if I've done my job, hopefully there won't be any, but let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen real quick here. And can somebody let me know that you guys can see the Brain Health Matrix?
Yeah, got it.
Got it. Okay, great. So am I hovering over it, or are you guys seeing me on a different screen? Yeah, okay. So number one, blood sugar regulation and nutrition. And listen, we all know how important our food sources are, and this is no different. But of course, the brain uses sugar, blood sugar, glucose in the blood exclusively for fuel. And there are lots of pieces and parts to our lifestyle that make us a dysregulated mess when it comes to blood sugar. And stress is the biggest part of that, but also how and when we eat is a really important factor too. So not to mention, there are many people who have diabetes or prediabetes, or insulin sensitivity is lost. And really important for brain health that we start to bring the blood sugar regulation back into a normal spot. And so one of the best ways to do that is actually to time restrict your eating. So you've heard of intermittent fasting, and that is what I'm talking about. This is a different way to same concept, just a different way to call it. And the idea is that you have a feeding window. Out of 24 hours on the clock, you've got a feeding window, and it should be 12 hours or less. And start with 12 hours, and then you can work it backwards to 8 hours, 6 hours. And during that 6 or 8 hours, you're eating whatever pleases you, that's healthy for you, of course. But then the rest of the time, you're consuming nothing but water, black tea, black coffee, or green tea, and nothing added to them, and no sparkling waters that taste like fruit. Because the idea is we want to give the brain a rest and the body a rest from releasing insulin in response to sugar. And if you smell something sweet or taste something sweet on the palate, even if it's 0 calories, then what will happen is you will have an insulin response. And we're trying to prevent that so that we can return the brain to an even level of blood sugar or fuel throughout the day. And this is what intermittent fasting does. Now, another thing to pay attention to is actually what you eat during your eating window. And by the way, when it comes to the prevention of Alzheimer's and dementia, which is end stage neurodegeneration, which starts at perimenopause if you have a propensity towards it. Okay, so that's what we're trying to prevent here. It's not a diagnosis that you find out it's in your genetics and you go, oh, okay, that's it. Like that's going to be my fate. It doesn't work that way. So lifestyle can change how well you do as you age. But there's a really important window that happens around perimenopause, which starts at 35, and menopause is typically 55. So there's a range of about 10 years on either side there. So it's 35 to 45 to start perimenopause and 45 to 55 to end perimenopause, depending on a lot of factors, okay? Most women stop bleeding at about 53 is the average number, might be 52. And that's when you've got 12 months without a period, that's menopause, okay? And everything after that is postmenopause. So during that perimenopausal and early menopause window, we have the opportunity to correct these things that give us a propensity towards neurodegeneration as we get older. So back to nutrition. Of course, it's really important once you've got the fasting window in place. And listen, there is a correct way for women to fast. It is very different than a way a man fasts. You have to fast according to your cycle. If you don't have a cycle, you fast according to the moon. There is a whole podcast that I recorded on this, so you can go and listen to that to get more information on that. So nutrition, really important that you're getting the non-starchy veg first on your plate, then healthy fats, then proteins. And that's basically following a paleo type diet, which I do recommend for my patients, and I eat this way myself. Really important that you get the sulfurous veggies in there, like the cruciferous guys, the Brussels sprouts, the broccoli, kale, cabbage, because they help with detoxification, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, is a really important factor for brain health. Okay, so moving on to number two. Number two is stress management, really important. And I just have some notes on the side here just to make sure I don't miss anything important for you guys. So when it comes to stress management, first of all, movement is a really important part of that. Find something you enjoy. You want to do 120 minutes a week of exercise that gets your heart rate up, that makes you feel good, that releases the hormones. Maybe it's a walk, maybe it's a Zumba class, maybe it's sex. That works too. So those kinds of things are great. I'm thinking, oh my God, 120 minutes of that a week? Whoa. Maybe for some of you all in the room. In which case, bravo, come talk to me afterwards. I want to know your secret. Okay, so movement, a really important part of stress management, as is sleep. You want to be getting 7 to 9 hours of uninterrupted sleep. I know this is an issue for a lot of women. There's a lot of tweaks that you can do with that. Contact your functional medicine or integrative medicine provider, your naturopath. For that, there's also a couple of podcasts I have recorded on the subject of sleep to get more information there. And, I want to talk briefly about self-care, because self-care is a really important part of stress management. And self-care means not bubble baths and, bodice ripper novels. But if that's your jam, that's fine. Right? It's more a matter of what are the things that bring you back to you, that make you feel like you are yourself. I almost like to call it self-practice more than self-care. So what are those things for you? For me, it's writing in my journal. It's writing an article for my blog, my Patreon page. It's an article, a podcast that I'm recording, something like that. Those things I love to do. And I have lots of crafty things I like to do too. So you'll know what that is for you, and do that often. That's a really important part of stress management. Okay, so let's move on to number three. Number three is hormones, one of my favorites. So it's interesting because this is what women think we have to worry about at perimenopause. But really what we should be concerned with at perimenopause and menopause, okay, not to exclude anyone in the room, is brain health, bone health, and heart health. And those three things will, getting the pieces of that puzzle correct for those three things, and a lot of them overlap, especially brain and heart and bone too, those will be the things that will allow you to age well. So, but just as a quick overview, the hormones we want to be reviewing, certainly estrogen and progesterone, those are the primary female hormone movers. They are also neuroprotective, and which means they protect the brain as we age. Now they do decline with age, so it is a good idea to have them checked. I like saliva testing for my hormone tests. I just feel it's more comprehensive, but whatever you can access is what's going to work well for you, okay? Here in Canada, we do have availabilities for blood testing or serum testing for hormones. So lots of patients want to start there because, of course, then the government pays for it, which is nice. So you also want to test testosterone, pregnenolone, all of the thyroid hormones, of which there are more than just TSH and T4. That's, again, you can refer to podcasts for more information on that. And also your cortisol. So that is your primary adrenal hormone. DHEA is the secondary adrenal hormone. Those should all be tested. To go back to estrogen, estradiol in particular, which is the major estrogen, there are several substances that we refer to as estrogen. That's the major master regulator of the brain. So as it declines in perimenopause, we can start to have cognitive issues. We're getting forgetful. We can't remember people's names. We are noticing that words don't come as quickly. And so what has to happen is you have to have these lifestyle things that prop up the brain function for the same place that estradiol used to do that without even thinking twice. So that's why it is women in their 40s and 50s, 60s can start to notice that their brain isn't working as well as it used to. So having the hormones checked and corrected is really important. And I talked about that window of time where we can correct the hormonal propensities or the hormonal issues that cause us to have a propensity towards dementia and Alzheimer's. And this is really when we want to do that, is that sort of 10-year window. Some say it's a 6-year window. But I think we've got a little bit of wiggle room there. So, okay, number 4 is gut and the blood-brain barrier. And in case any of you were wondering what the BBB was, you get major points from me if you knew. Not the Better Business Bureau. Okay, so the gut and the brain are essentially the same tissue, just separated by a few feet. So if you have gut issues, you're going to have issues with brain function at some point. So it is really important that you make sure that your gut is functioning as well as it could. And the big factor here for gut, for the average woman, not somebody who's had, let's say, ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, that's autoimmunity, and that's a different sort of, or celiac disease, that's a different sort of thing. For the average Joe, you need to know if you have any food intolerances. And this is a very, 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 very common thing. Like I'd say 50% or more of the patients that are in my clinic have some sort of food intolerance. Most of them are not aware. Some of them have some, oh yes, I've been lactose intolerant. I get gassy if I have dairy, or no, I can't eat grains. And so listen, if you can't eat grains or dairy, if you're reactive to those two things and you know it, then really that is a major factor. Continuing to eat those is a major factor for whether or not your brain ages well. So you really, really need to work at eliminating that. Of course, we want to talk about the microbiome when we're talking about the gut. The microbiome is the collection of bugs, bacteria, virus, fungi, yeast, etc., that live in us. Yes, we have virus living inside of us. So this group or cluster of critters makes up a big part of our health. So we want to be consuming foods that are, certainly you want to be taking your probiotics and your prebiotics. Prebiotics are the food that the bugs eat. Probiotics are the bugs themselves, and your fermented foods will be the natural way you can provide those bugs to your body. That's sauerkraut, kimchi, olives, kombucha. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. Pickles, anything like that. Excellent for the gut. So something else I want to mention about the gut, and the reason why blood-brain barrier is here, is if you are consuming foods that you are reacting to, you create a situation in the gut where the space between the cells of the gut open up, and what's inside the gut leaks out into the abdomen, which then gets picked up by the blood. Now the blood takes it to the immune system. The immune system says, this isn't natural. Now I've got to launch a response to it. And this is how autoimmunity develops. And autoimmune issues are a major thing for women right now. We're seeing a ton of them for a lot of reasons, different conversations. So I'll move on. But when you have leakiness in your gut, your blood-brain barrier is leaky as well, which means now stuff can get into the brain. So this is really the reason why it's so important to have gut health. Okay, number 5 is inflammation, infection, and toxins. So this is a huge category that is basically insults of the brain. And anything that causes inflammation, anything from a crappy diet to a crappy relationship, or tolerating things that you shouldn't in your life, create inflammation. Infection can be anything from herpes to Epstein-Barr to Lyme, or any of the co-infections with Lyme. That's a really important one. Poor dental hygiene can really affect the brain. And in fact, in some of the Alzheimer's plaques that have been studied post-mortem have been found the bacteria that lives exclusively in the mouth. So make sure, it's really important that you see your dentist and you have a healthy mouth as you age. And toxins is a group of everything from mold to toxins you may get in your household cleaners, your skincare products. That's a really important thing to look at is what's in your skincare products. And also, like I said, household cleaners, it's in pollution. It's literally, toxins can be everywhere. They can be in our water. All of those things make up something we call dementogens, and it's a group of substances that can encourage dementia in the brain. So really important to clean that up. Number 6 is genetics. And this one can make people's eyes sort of glaze over. So I'm going to go really fast. There's a couple of genes that predispose us to Alzheimer's and dementia in particular. It's a good idea to know if they're there, because if they're there, then you know these things are going to be the difference between you aging well and, dying at 99 because your tango partner spun you too hard and you knocked your head on the floor. Or as my husband says, he wants to go out by an orca eating him off his surfboard at 99. So I don't know, that's how I would prefer to go out. So if you know what's in your genetics, and that is a 23andMe test, that's the one I recommend. And for heaven's sakes, if you're going to do it, make sure you use a false name when you do that test, because the governments are allowing the insurance companies to access those reports. And when they access them, they say, oh, you've got a pre-existing condition for Alzheimer's. We're not going to cover that. So use a nom de plume or a drag name and have a good time as you're coming up with it. Okay, so let's just move on from genetics at that point. So number 7 is blood flow and heart health. All of the things that you are to do for your cardiovascular health, turns out are excellent for the brain as well. Those two things work hand in hand. If you have vascular disease, then you are at an increased risk for neurodegeneration as you age. So make sure you're managing your lipids, your blood pressure, etc. All really, really important. And number 8, my favorite, is the peace of mind and purpose module of the Brain Health Matrix. And, I have to say, it's so important for us to be operating from a place that fuels us, because the brain needs activation in order to stay sharp. And so what is it you fill your days with? And I know what I'm seeing for sure in my patients is that people are just picking up the casino in their pocket, I like to call it, to get a dose of, dopamine or serotonin or something like that. The truth is that every time you do that, it takes you away from what you're here to do. And I'm going to encourage you to find something else to make you feel good. It's just gotten too easy for us to get a dose. And listen, I'm just as guilty. So no judgment, just information. And something else I want you to keep in mind is that you have to give your brain periods of rest throughout the day. If you remember when we were kids, they used to tell us daydreaming was a bad idea, or, your kids staring off out the window when the teacher's teaching, and that sort of thing used to be bad. And I'm here to tell you it's actually very, very good for your brain. It engages something called the default mode network, which is a network in the brain that allows you to integrate information and come up with solution. So if you feel stuck, or you feel like you're lacking focus, or you feel like you can't concentrate, it's probably because your brain is full and it needs some integration time. So the way you engage the default mode network is literally daydreaming. So turn off all the devices and stare out the window, or sit in your favorite chair, or maybe you're in the bathtub, and just daydream. This is a really, really important tactic for helping the brain function and focus as we get older. Really, really important. Hey, that's important at any age, but especially as we get older, because we get busier, and women love busyness. Busyness makes us feel worthy, and you're worthy because you got here, boo. You don't need busyness to make you feel worthy. So it's really important that you do that. Okay, I am going to stop screen sharing if I can figure out how to turn that off. Okay, good. Okay, so that brain health matrix is something that I put into a course that I'm offering called the Brain Health Master Course for Women. And there are several videos for each of those, each of the 8 pieces where I explain them in much better detail, and you get support from me and all of that business. And I think Elaine has the link for that somewhere that she's going to share with you guys. And hopefully I didn't go too long, Elaine, and I'm happy to answer some questions if anybody has anything they'd like to know.
Thank you. Amazing as always. You've got so much to tell us, and we are all going to sign up for your brain health program because I've got to say the podcast is, I'm sure, I mean, we were just chatting, the podcast is incredible. I've learned so much over the last year. Are you still taking patients by chance?
Virtually, maybe.
All right, well, sign up, guys, because we did. You can do it with, actually I did it with Chi-Chi. We did we did saliva tests, and we then had, I think we've had 2 sessions with you where you went over the saliva test with us and explained what we needed to do, and that's really how I got into the hormone. Then I actually then went to my doctor and got the hormones and got everything lined up and feeling much better. So thank you to you for that. Any questions, anybody?
Do you have any supplements that you can recommend for the brain?
Yeah, yes, there's quite a few. It just sort of depends on what you need it for, but like overall for the brain is the and I heard Dr. Nichols say the trifecta. That's funny because I've got one too. So the Dr. Lovely trifecta is vitamin D, fish oil, and probiotics. Okay, and the vitamin D should be about 5,000 IUs a day, liquid, and that's international units. And you want about a teaspoon or 3 or 4 capsules of fish oil a day. Should be a combination of EPA and DHA. And probiotics, just a good solid probiotic is just fine. You can take it with food if it upsets your tummy. But any probiotic will do. You can get specific with the bugs. If you are in my office for treatment of brain function related disorders, we have a specific probiotic that we use for neuro rehab, but just a regular probiotic will be good. Also, resveratrol and curcumin work really well for sharpening the pencil. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Oh, we used to repeat those.
Yes. Resveratrol.
We used Pellet. Sorry.
Yes. Let's see. RESVERATROL. Resveratrol.
And is that stuff you can find over the counter, or do you?
Yep.
Oh, okay, great.
Yep.
And
It's made from the skins of red wine grapes.
Oh, wow, cool. And what about some of these things that pop up? Of course, everything pops up on my Instagram. There's a company called Bio, and they go, it's like Bio Brain Health. Have you ever heard of that? Or some of those neuro, kind of those neuro specialist things that you can get over. It's vitamins, I think, but they specialize, they're selling themselves on neuro health.
Right. Well, I'm not, there's so many, first of all.
Right.
I have some of my own privately branded supplements as well. Not yet available in the US, but I'm working on that. But, most of those have a pretty good backing in terms of they've got somebody who knows the research, that knows what to give the brain for support. So I don't think you can go wrong. The only one I know of for sure is the Neurohacker Collective. The Neurohacker Collective has some supplements that are really good, and also backed by Dave Asprey of the Bulletproof brand. So he seems to know what he's talking about. So I do think that's a good option too.
Great. And yes,
When the doctor mentioned fish oil, omega-3, or a particular fish oil.
Yeah, so you want to get a blend of EPA and DHA, and that is a blend of fish oil and vegetarian sourced omega fats, of which omega-3 will be part of that. Okay. I know that's a big conversation, that there's a whole biochemistry thing there, which, everybody would be asleep, including myself. But most of the supplements are made well. So you don't have to worry so much about where is it coming from, mackerel or sardine or salmon. Don't worry about that. That's usually a marketing thing. That's usually an excuse to charge you an arm and a leg for your supplements, and you don't need that. But what you do need is for it to be a clean source. So preferably it's a dark water, deep water, offshore fish that is naturally farmed rather than or naturally caught than a farmed fish. That's what's important when it comes to fish oil.
So you mentioned the liquid vitamin D. What are your views on all the gummy vitamins that are out there that people are taking?
Specifically for vitamin D or just in general?
I think there's Veritol as well in the gummy form.
However you get it in your pie hole sounds good to me.
anybody else?
No issues.
All right. Well, yeah, we got this. So lots of information, lots of note taking. We appreciate it, Fiona. Really, really do. And we're going to go online and look for your brain health talk series. And go ahead. You said you had.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you asked about the virtual appointments, I do offer virtual appointments from time to time. It just depends on how full my schedule is. So the best thing to do is just email me, and you can do that at admin@drlovely.com, admin@drlovely.com. And it's just going to depend. We may put you on a wait list. I may find someone local for you, or I may take you myself. That's why I was kind of like, maybe.
Got it.
Yes. And the other thing is, you can find more information about the Brain Health Master Course for Women on my website, drlovely.com, under the offerings tab. Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.
All right, so I am going to reiterate a little bit about what Dr. Lovely said, a little bit about Dr. Nichols. Dr. Kraus is probably going to pull it all together. My emphasis, and for those of you who don't know me, I am Elizabeth DeMeo. I've been a nutritionist for 25 years in the integrative space, functional medicine space, working under Mark Hyman and all of these fellows. Now I work for BioT. I did get pelleted recently, and it's the best thing I ever did. Before that, I was a nutritionist doing supplements and diet and teaching medical doctors nutrition therapy. And I will tell you, pelleting first, then diet, then nutraceuticals, then exercise, then sleep is the right thing to do, because if the hormones are in balance, nothing's in balance. And if you're dysmorphically obese, that means you have a lot of body fat and not a lot of muscle. It is impossible to lose that. I don't care how much kale you eat. So at the end of the day, that's what I will say about nutrition. I will make a note towards the end about it. I don't want to spill this water in case my hands go crazy. So let's just talk a little bit about hormones and brain health. For those of you who were here, I did show this slide before, but I will just say that one of the main things we see in terms of our brain that a lot of women have, because we are multitaskers, mood swings, anxiety, tension, irritability, depression, lack of sleep, that big 3 to 4 a.m. wake up time is a big thing as you're going perimenopause into menopause. Yes, you can take melatonin. Yes, there are other things that you can take, but this is a big trigger for women. And then you're up thinking, and then it's hard to go back to sleep. And if you're not sleeping, that's also going to trigger effects on the brain and your overall health. The more you don't sleep, the more cortisol rises, the more you gain weight around the belly. So there is a connection metabolically with regard to belly fat and hormones. Memory loss, lack of focus, brain fog, and then you'll see some of the other symptoms. I was talking to Patty, she's my supervisor, my boss, I love her, she's terrific, and I will tell you that one of the things that I wanted to say coming into this talk was, I don't understand, and this is, my mother's on probably 25 medications. I don't understand why people will take a medication that has 75 side effects, one of which includes death, okay, upon taking the medication, but they're scrutinizing bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, especially when the hormones mimic your own body's hormones, and you feel better. And it's not about anti-aging, it's about optimal aging. So for me, getting pelleted, it seems to be the way to go, especially if it's going to help you not take those medications that are going to cause some of the problems. For example, I mentioned this last time, why would you take Fosamax when it literally chews away at your jaw? When you can do hormone therapy and improve your bone health. You can exercise, improve your bone health. You can be on an anti-inflammatory elimination diet, improve your bone health. You can use weights to improve your bone health. But where are the practitioners telling you to do this? I don't know where they are. They need to be somewhere. So for me, if you are trying to have healthy brain, healthy body, then one of the things you're going to want to do, starting in your early 20s, is looking at your hormones. Because you won't know where your normal levels are, because there's no such thing as normal levels. There are levels based on what they say, but BioT actually has information that gives you the sweet spot for both men and women, where testosterone should be and where estradiol or estrogen should be. I love this slide because what this slide is talking about, for those of you who can see it, or I think everybody can right over there, it's really talking about androgen, so testosterone receptors in the body. So as you can see, hair, skin, and scalp. So you could talk about all the different things you want to do for your face, which, hey, we all want a little bit of that, right? I really do. When the jowls dropped, I wanted to fix that, right? I mean, I'm going to work on that. But why would you not get pelleted when it's going to work from the inside out? Then go to the dermatologist. Obviously you want to eat right, obviously you want to exercise, but think about every single tissue in the body is impacted by testosterone, which means if you don't have testosterone, what's going to happen? Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to have thyroid effects. Thyroid affects your temperature, your sleep, your weight. You're going to have the brain affected, the spinal cord, your nerves, cardiovascular. 1 in 3 women get heart disease postmenopausal. Okay, well, let's get pelleted. That goes down to 0 almost. Lipids, the second you turn 50, I don't know if anybody noticed this, but your lipids just go like this. And then you're wondering, wow, I'm eating my fiber, I'm having my oatmeal. Well, it has nothing to do with that. You can eat all the oatmeal you want, and then that starts to cause a glycemic rise, which means you're having too much sugar in your blood if you're just having grain for breakfast in the morning. So there's that. Breast. We just did a 10-year retrospective study. I mentioned this last time. A 35.5% reduction in the incidence of breast cancer when you are pelleted, which means testosterone has more effect on breast tissue than estrogen. Why would you not get pelleted? It's a little bit like when I first started working at Canyon Ranch and I had these women coming in and they wanted to talk about their weight, but they wanted to tell me more about what they were eating that was right than they wanted me to give them advice on what they should do. And I would say, no, you can't just wake up and have a yogurt for breakfast, a skinless, boneless chicken with fat-free dressing for lunch, and a Diet Coke at 4 o'clock, and then hardly eat anything for dinner and think that's going to control your weight. And then you come to Canyon Ranch and you eat all the vegetables and the beans and the fruit and you have gas and you can't control because you're not even feeding your bugs. It's literally the physiology of your body is what is impacted by our physiology. Meaning if you don't fix it through the physiology, if you just think, oh, I'm going to take a supplement or this or that, it's not going to work. And this is why I'm very passionate about it, because when you teach people their own physiology, they understand the connection. I like what Dr. Fiona talked about. That was really important, but it's pieces that we need to make sure that we're doing, pieces of the puzzle. And for me, I think when you start with understanding bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, it's natural, it's not synthetic. Every 3 to 4 months for women, every 4 to 5 months for men, it changes the game. It's such a game changer that all I do is talk about that. All I do is talk about it with my friends, and I don't understand why people are tentative about it. So with that said, we want to just one more time reiterate, look at this, bone marrow, joints, muscle, sexual organs, uterus, vagina, bladder. Let's just quickly talk about the bladder. You have bladder issues as you age, leaking, sneezing, coughing, right? When you get pelleted, it goes away. but you end up doing the vaginal, all this vaginal, different kinds of things that they're doing now. Thank you, that's the word I wanted, rejuvenation. And I'm just wondering, okay, let's get pelleted instead of having to do treatment after treatment after treatment because it gets resolved. So think about the physiology. Take this home, really sit on it and understand why you want to get your testosterone looked at and your estrogen looked at by somebody who knows what they're doing. So low testosterone increases your risk for Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis or osteoporosis-related fractures, diabetes, sarcopenia, that means low muscle mass, sarcopenia, and that's a problem because you can't save yourself from a fall, you don't have a lot of muscle mass, that increases the risk for diabetes because muscle absorbs glucose, prostate cancer in men, and an increased risk for breast cancer in women. You have to say possibly because there's all these things when you make direct claims. Dementia takes 15 to 20 years to develop. It begins with a mild cognitive impairment, and it really begins in the 30s and 40s. So really, taking care of yourself then means that you will take care of yourself now. By 80 to 85, 50% of Americans will have dementia. That is really scary. Maybe accelerated by hormonal and neurotransmitter imbalances, meaning when you are imbalanced hormonally, you will increase your risk for dementia. With Alzheimer's, both estrogen and testosterone have a neuroprotective role. Fish oil has a neuroprotective role. Antioxidants, like eating your colorful fruits and vegetables, have a neuroprotective role. Reducing stress has a neuroprotective role. Sleeping properly has a neuroprotective role. Not thank you, has a neuroprotective role. So all of these things, practicing, but we can't walk around and drink green tea all day long and meditate. That's not the world we live in. But if we can recognize that we make good choices about what we're doing with regard to sleep and stress and everything else, we will reduce our risk for Alzheimer's. Women with lower estrogen levels have a greater risk for AD. Well, that's funny because when do you start losing estrogen? Right. Menopause. It just plummets, and then you wonder why you're having hot flashes, and you have anxiety, and you have no sex drive, and you literally don't feel good. You're losing estrogen, you're losing testosterone, that's it, it's not rocket science. There's an overwhelming evidence that estrogen and testosterone helps decrease apoptosis. So apoptosis is the killing of cells. Some of that you want to do, but you don't want to do the killing of healthy cells. You need to kill off or break down cells that are not healthy anymore, right? You don't want those sitting around, but you don't want to increase that in the brain. And why would that be a problem? Well, the more sugar you eat, the less anti-inflammatories you have, the more you're going to have oxidative stress in the brain. The more oxidative stress in the brain, the more problem you're going to have in terms of brain health because the brain is an organ. The brain is an organ just like everything else. So we're concerned about saving our heart, but the brain is just as important. So think about that in terms of the physiology. I'll repeat it again. When you teach people physiology, they understand that. The protective effect of hormones decreases beta amyloid. So beta amyloid is really just the body's, you know how you have cholesterol and then cholesterol hardens and that increases your risk for heart disease? Beta amyloid is just the same thing in the brain. Viruses, bacteria, fungi increases brain amyloid deposition, as well as fats, as well as sugar. So we really want to think about that in relationship to how we're treating our brain as an organ. I love this slide. I want you to see beta amyloid will increase with Alzheimer's, but it decreases with testosterone and estradiol. And when you take progesterone, that's the added benefit. Look all the way down at brain cell glucose metabolism. Your brain uses glucose, period. So if you have a very low sugar diet, and I mean vegetables, carbohydrates, very low carbohydrate diet, you're not really fueling your brain, and then you're wondering why you have brain fog and you can't concentrate. But in the opposite, too much sugar, high sugar diet, too much carbohydrate, the wrong kind, you're going to increase sugar in the brain, and you want to metabolize that sugar. You don't want too much, you want the brain to use it. So testosterone increases the metabolism of sugar in the brain, as does estradiol. So they call Alzheimer's, they call type 3 diabetes. There's a relationship between that term and brain health, meaning you're going to get type 3 diabetes if you are eating a high carbohydrate diet. That is the, quote, standard American diet. It's bad fats, too much sugar, refined foods. You know, people think that those little fish. What are those fish called that they give to kids all the time? Swedish goldfish. That's the worst thing that you could give to your kid. Not just because it's sprayed with glyphosate, but it's so refined. That and Cheerios, those two products have the highest level of glyphosate on any food. Glyphosate is like Roundup. It's what they use on wheat. So the point is, if you're eating refined foods, I'm not talking about beautiful bread dipped in olive oil with a couple of olives and a nice glass of red wine. And that's another thing. People don't eat bread anymore. They're so afraid of it because of gluten, because of this, because of that. I just think we've come so far off the pendulum that you have to be paleo, vegan, this, that, and the other, vegan. That's Mark Hyman's new diet. Let's just try to eat normally and not be crazy, but the biggest thing is eating healthy, because that's what gets us to where we need to be in terms of brain health, hormone health, heart health, breast health, etc. Sexual health, okay? That is the biggest thing. I have heard here at BioT, and I've only been with BioT since September, that getting pelleted has saved marriages. Patty can reiterate that. I have heard that 100 times. We have over 6,000 providers pelleting women and pelleting men and then feeling better. Increasing sex drive, feeling better, no vaginal dryness, better bladder control. So it's just something to consider. BioT balances the thyroid. It's all I'm going to do, talk about that, but it's one of the things we look at. A lot of people aren't looking at thyroid, specifically free T3, which is the active form of the thyroid hormone. So if your doctor is looking at your thyroid, he better be looking at free T3 and free T4. Okay, that's just an important factor. So when you go to a BioT provider, they're going to look at that along with your hormones and everything else. The thyroid is a missing link in the United States in terms of practitioners looking at the thyroid. I know Dr. Kraus definitely checks the thyroid. She's an integrative practitioner, so she's going to look at all elements based on what the patient comes in with, and even perhaps what they're not telling. She will definitely look at that as a factor. So the advantages of pellet therapy is you don't get a roller coaster effect. You know, when you do injections, you go up for a little bit and then boom. When you do creams, it's very inconsistent and there's no dosing specificity, and that's a problem. We have a dosing site. You put in patient information into the dosing site and that gives you exactly what you need. When you do creams, you don't know. You're literally shot in the dark. It might be too much estrogen, not enough testosterone, etc., etc. And you can't give unopposed estrogen, which means if you do give estrogen to a woman with a uterus, you have to take progesterone. That's just an FYI. 2 to 4 insertions per year, so every 3 to 4 months for women, every 4 to 5 months with men. So I got pelleted in September, and then I just got pelleted again a week ago. Yay! My friend said, "Oh, you seem like you have a little more energy." I'm like, "I do." Improved lipids, insulin sensitivity, and body composition. So this is very important. No significant weight gain. Best method to increase bone density. And there's no increase in blood clots, heart attack, and stroke. The thing is, the advantage of a pellets therapy is even more than what's on this list. And I just want to say, for those of you, this is the 3rd time that we've been speaking about BioT. Really consider it as part of your health routine now and as you go forward. It's not about anti-aging. You will age. It's about optimal aging. Brain health, heart health, breast health. Very specifically, thyroid health. Remember, teach them their physiology and they will understand what they need to do. And it doesn't mean you have to go from 0 to 60 and drink green tea all day or just eat beans or grains. I mean, there has to be an 80-20 rule somewhere in there. We have to be normal people, right? But we have to find some common ground of where we are in terms of our health. So this is the last slide, and just to finish up, these are the lifestyle factors that I like to just throw out there. To consider reducing the risk for the incidence of brain disorders and other chronic conditions, right? Healthy diet, so lots of fiber. I just want to make this note, people, you cannot get fiber if you don't eat grain or beans, which means if you are on a paleo diet, you might lose weight, but it's only temporary. Because the second you introduce the carbohydrate in your diet, what's going to happen? That's why you want to eat normally, okay? Yes, complex carbohydrates are good, those low starchy vegetables, but if you just go paleo all the time, there's a little bit of a problem in terms of just normal eating. Beans are very high in fiber. Dried fruit, very high in fiber. Grain, very high in fiber, especially if you're eating oatmeal, steel cut oats, that kind of thing. If you take that out of the diet and you look at vegetables and you look at the list of fiber per vegetable, just do it, you'll see nothing. It's like 0.1, 2, maybe 3 grams of fiber. You want to know how much fiber you should have per day? 25 grams for a woman, 35 for a man. That's a lot of fiber to get in the day, a lot. So fiber bulks, helps you move your bowels, but it also scrapes the insides to remove the cholesterol, to remove the hormones, to remove the viruses and bacteria. If you're constipated, it's all stuck in there. So guess what? Being paleo is kind of difficult, right? If you're just eating vegetables and you're not eating grains and beets, it can be really good for weight loss. It can be very, very good for weight loss because you lower the glycemic load, but you've got to find a common ground. Colorful fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans, grass-fed lean proteins, and responsibly farmed fish, minimal dairy, gluten, sugar, alcohol, artificial sweetener, snack foods. Here's a dirty little secret. California wine, white and red wine, is so full of pesticides, it's not funny. Right, so they don't allow that in Europe, so I'm just gonna give you, here's the ticket, try to buy European wine. I hate to say it, but that's a big, big problem, and it's a dirty little secret and has nothing to do with the sulfites. Okay? Include cardiovascular exercise. So HIIT training, where you go up, you work hard, and you come down. You go up, you work hard, and you come down. It's very important for brain glucose metabolism. So that reduces oxidative stress. Remember, there's over-exercising and under-exercising. If you over-exercise too much, it's just as bad for the body as if you don't. There has to be rest time, and rest time is not yoga. Rest time is, as Dr. Lovely said, looking out of the window and daydreaming with a green tea, which I can't drink, but for those of you who can, good for you. Meditation, forest bathing, and take vacations. People don't take enough vacations. And ladies, if you're married, take a vacation with your husband without your children. Leave the children home. Period. Leave them home. You cannot be alone. And here's the thing that I know I need to go. This is what I do. Patty's going to say, stop talking and move on, hurry up. But here's the thing. When I used to counsel women, I used to say, when do you go on vacation? Well, I don't. We take our kids. I'm like, how in God's name can you relate to your partner of 10, 15, and 20 years without being alone? And then when the kids go off, you have to relearn how to be a couple together. And that is really hard if you're not reconnecting. And part of that comes from sex. And then, of course, if you get pelleted, you will want the sex and you won't want the kids there. So see, it's a win-win for everybody. Forest bathing means you just go for a walk in the woods and it affects your vagus nerve. And then lastly, sleep hygiene. Sleep-wake times, an average of 7 to 8 hours. Use the blue light glasses. They're really hideous. They're awful. They're like these orange glasses that you put, but they're the only ones that work. Otherwise, read at night, take a bath. Play a game with your husband, like play some cards. Does anybody play cards or backgammon or do anything like that? Do that, get away from the screens. It's okay to watch Downton Abbey, but it's really to do like on a Sunday afternoon, not at night after the end of the day when you're just watching TV and you have the TV in your face. And then community, friends, faith, and family, you have to have all of those things. Because if you're alone, it's not good for your mental health to be alone. And I think, my friends, I have used my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, somebody had a question. Hardly any. I will give you the little downside. It's just a tiny bit more facial hair, but you have that anyways. And not everybody gets that. So I got it. I got a little bit of that when I got pelleted, but that's really easy to take care of. Oh, sorry. Patty, I'm having a...
The incidence of that happening is less than 2%.
Less than 2% that
That's
incident.
not a high percentage.
Okay.
So why, since I was last year, I heard you, I had a checkup with my OB in New York City, and she's like, no way to pellet it. Like, we'll do creams or pills or, so what, is it just an education gap? It is.
It really is. And it's really sad
And she's
because
very open to, she's not one of these like strict.
I have been in this industry for a very long time, and I think Dr. Kraus could probably reiterate this. Being an integrative functional practitioner is a very difficult road because there is this line that people just can't cross mentally. And in the East Coast, the American Medical Association has such a hold on people that everything has to have so much science. But the thing is, there actually is the science. Do you know that pellet therapy has been around since 1939? Radical hysterectomies, you had very forward-thinking practitioners using testosterone treatment on women who were getting hysterectomies in their 20s and 30s. 1939, with no side effects. With no side effects. I'm trying to think of what else, Patty, just
What
to...
we could do for you, especially since this is your situation, is we have a really prominent OBGYN right in the middle of Manhattan that would be happy to talk to her. And if we could get her name, we'd be happy to talk to her as well. Just so we can provide the science that I think she needs to see and probably just hasn't been exposed to. That's really all it is.
I think that's what it is. I think it's a little bit like supplement nutrition when that came out 30 years ago. I mean, Solgar was the first company. You guys have seen Solgar. It's in the gold bottle. You know, people were really tentative about that. Now supplement nutrition is the way to go. And even look at some of the treatments that she was talking about with the face. I mean, med spas have just gone from 0 to 60 in the last 10 years.
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Just an appreciation for doctors, because I know this comes up a lot, and from a patient perspective is, remember doctors who specialize, and especially OBGYNs, they are delivering babies, and they work 24/7. They don't have time to read the science in the study. So when we're allowed to bring the science to them, you know, they really are appreciative of that. You know, so just on behalf of them, it's not because they want to be that way. They're forced to be that way by their schedule. They just don't have the time.
And you know, it requires talking to people about something that they've heard was bad, hormone replacement therapy, but there's a difference.
She's very supportive of hormone replacement, just not of the pelleting.
Yeah, and she's just not educated because I think if she were to be, should change her mind. It is a game changer. It is a game changer. It's a game changer for a practice, and it's a game changer for the patient. It's a game changer for men. It's a game changer for women. And I repeat this because I was on the creams. I gained weight. They didn't work. I was bleeding profusely. The estrogen wasn't right. The testosterone wasn't right. And I said, the heck with this. Why am I doing it? Then I started working at BioT, and it really changed everything. And I will say, I was tentative about it back in the day because I came from food first. Food is everything. It is really not anymore. Really balance your hormones first. You know, think about food, get your nutrition, make sure the sleep is good, stress reduction, and I think it all falls into place from there. Anybody else?
Share something?
Sure.
So, if that's okay.
Sure.
I'm a nurse practitioner and I do also work in OBGYN, and a lot of the providers that I work with are very closed in terms of anything that's not prescription based. So I personally did a lot of compounding, which is similar to what the pelleting is, but just again more like cream based. And I would bring that to the providers that I work with, and they're just like, oh no, just send them the script, send them the script. So I do believe that Patty what she was saying is correct in terms of, it's not that they don't want to know or that they're against it. I think it's just more of an education barrier. And I work nothing with, you know, the pelleting right now, so I'm sharing this as a provider working in an office as well with women. So I do think it's education, you know, and it's important to share and educate the providers out there. So
We're trying.
Thank you.
That's my job in Connecticut. All right, thank you. I took too much time. I apologize. I'm so sorry. I'm thank you. I really tried.
Katie.
You're
Next. Katie's going to talk to us about bone health and exercise.
Hello, I know many of you here, but not everyone, but my name is Katie Vidazzi, and I'm an orthopedic surgeon. And I do specialize, does that sound okay? I hear an echo, is that right? Okay, but I do specialize in sports medicine. But today we're going to talk a lot about bone health and really musculoskeletal health, because I think a big part certainly of aging is our bones, but really also our muscle. And a lot of the injuries that I see in the office may be bone-related fractures, but probably more of what I see is going to be muscle, posture-related, and things like that. So I will start on osteoporosis. And we've heard so many wonderful things today about supplements in different forms, skincare. So I will skip over certain things just so we don't touch everything or go over everything multiple times, but really focusing on osteoporosis, which is very critical for all of us. And we've heard the idea of estrogen levels really dropping off in our 20s, starting to decline in our 20s. And that's really critical for bone health as well, because so does our bone density. So all of us here as women and as moms, it's important to know that for our children, this is a really critical time for them to develop their bone health when they're young and into their 20s. So really working with our kids, I talk with my kids about that every day. What are they getting for calcium and vitamin D to help build that bone health? because that peak that you get in terms of your bone density is really critical so that you have a slower decline or that you're at a max peak at that time period. So that's really important. But basically 80% of people with osteoporosis are women. So, you know, in this room, this is really the critical audience. It's going to affect us. Half of the women over 50 will have osteoporosis. And that's a really big number because it does put you at a big risk of fractures, and fractures change your life very quickly. Half of women over 50 will break a bone from osteoporosis. Most bone density, again, forms before the age of 20, and after 20, we start to lose our bone mass. So this is a really good diagram. It's very basic. It's similar to actually estrogen, but basically you look, our bone mass peaked in our 20s. Right, so we're on that decline, and our job now is to slow down that decline. We're not going to rebuild it necessarily. There are some meds that can help with that, but you're not going to change that overall trajectory. So as much as we can for ourselves, slow it down. We'll go through some of the ways to do that, but for our kids to really help them gain that, and that's really important, I think, for all of us here. So the key ways to make strong bone, again, supplements, calcium and vitamin D. People always ask me, what are the most important supplements? And those are the two. For most people, unless you have osteoporosis, so kind of in a younger population, it's going to be getting that through diet and through supplements. And when I look, the easy way, if you don't have a history of osteoporosis, is getting a calcium supplement. There are multiple different ones. Some are tolerated better than others. Citracal is one that tends to be tolerated well from a GI. And this, again, is a very comprehensive approach from diet, hormones, everything else. But these are just some basics. Citracal with vitamin D, if you don't have osteoporosis or penia, is a great supplement to take. One thing to be aware of with calcium, you want to, in our age group, get about 1,200 milligrams a day. But you cannot absorb all of that at the same time. So if you say, I'm just going to take all my calcium in the morning or night, you will not absorb it, so you'll be wasting about half of that. So you can only get 600 at a time, absorb 600 at a time, so make sure you split that up. So if you're doing half of your calcium through diet and food, that's great. And then if you're getting 600 or so through supplements, you can take that all at the same time, but don't try to take more because you just won't absorb it. And again, there are different ways of getting it. We can get it through different foods, supplements. Everything is calcium fortified. So if you're lactose intolerant, you can get it through almond milk. You can get it through calcium fortified orange juice, gummies. Any of those things are great forms to do it, but just make sure you're getting enough and not having too much at the same time. Exercise. Exercise is a really important way for us to develop our bone strength. And we talk about weight-bearing exercises, and there are a lot of different weight-bearing exercises, and it can be running and jogging and playing tennis and squash, and also weightlifting, and I'll go over those a little bit more. Avoid smoking. Smoking has a huge impact on bone density, so hopefully most of us are not smoking. It's not generally a big issue, but we do still see a fair amount of that, and definitely with our kids. I tell my kids, you'll break a bone if you smoke, so don't, but it is an important thing. And then excess drinking also has an impact on bone health. And these are very similar means in terms of treating osteoporosis. It's going to be calcium and vitamin D supplements. And there are also a whole class of medications, and I won't go over those in too much detail today, but that can help slow down that decline of bone density. And that is more when you are diagnosed with osteopenia, which is a lower level of bone loss, and then osteoporosis. And those are things that you want to really have an idea of your bone density as we get into our kind of 30s and 40s and 50s, talking to your primary care about it, understanding what your levels are. And then for sure, if you suffer any sort of fracture or stress fracture, understanding your bone density, getting all of your levels checked, thyroid, calcium, vitamin D levels, and if you need to do a more prescribed approach, that's an important conversation with your doctor. So what can you do at home to prevent osteoporosis? So again, we've talked about some of the nutritional supplements you can take, calcium, and there are a lot of other ways to get calcium. There are some really good websites that you can go to for different supplements. Mayo Clinic has a great website that you can just look for food supplements. But dairy products, almonds, seeds, beans, dark leafy greens. So there are a lot of ways to get it in your diet itself and not just through a pill. Weight-bearing exercises, again, are very important, and there are a lot of different ones you can do. You can do HIIT classes, you can run, you can play squash, elliptical, and then resistance or weightlifting. And that's, they're great ways to do that, and I'll talk a little about muscular health, doing those things as well. So I love this slide on, this is injury prevention, and that's primarily, what I focus on because I see everyone after they have an injury. And so as much as I can help you prevent having those injuries, I think is key. So just a funny slide on how you can prevent it, but it really is what we want to look at. So I'm going to kind of jump to injury prevention, and this is part of osteoporosis because we want to prevent fractures. But one of the key things that I see, and again, this is kind of going to muscular health, not just bone health, are postural issues. And I see in the last 2 years during COVID, a lot of it, more than usual. But it's something I see across the board, and I see it at all ages. So I see a lot of kids come in the office, I would say starting probably 10, 11, 12, with upper neck, back pain. And a lot of that is from heavy backpacks, iPhones, computers, studying all the time. We're constantly in this position. And I'm going to show you a good slide coming up of why that has such an impact on us. And this is the kind of posture that we just see a lot of. And when people come in the office, they come in, they'll be sitting like this, wondering why their neck or shoulders hurt. And I don't need an x-ray, I can very quickly just see that the posture is having a huge impact. It causes headaches, it causes upper neck and back pain. And so this is probably one of the most common things I see. It doesn't kind of get better overnight, but there are easy ways in terms of strengthening that have a huge impact, and it really changes quality of life. And it also protects multiple organs. So this, again, another picture that I think many of us can relate to, sitting at our computers in this position, and you can look at good posture for desks and how to align yourself. There are great pictures online again, but this leads to a lot of pain, and I see a lot of patients who come in the office with symptoms that are basically related to this posture. So things like upper neck pain, shoulder pain, low back pain, hamstring pain can come from this, and even knee pain because it puts stress on the front of the knee. So I see a lot of patients, and when I kind of break down what's going on, I think this is what it stems from, and we really work on how can we improve these things. So I'm going to go through and just kind of show you a couple of these exercises. I won't necessarily demonstrate them all. But there's a great resource, and it's called OrthoInfo, and it's the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons has a great set of exercises. And they are focused on shoulder, knee, tennis elbow, a lot of different programs, and they're basically PDFs online. But it's a great resource if you are having pain in any of these areas. You can do a lot of it at home. We're all busy. I work in an office, I have physical therapy upstairs. I'm sure they would help me anytime I walked up there, but I don't have time to do it. So these are things that I can spend 5 minutes at home when I'm waiting for my kid to get out of the shower or whatnot that you can do. And actually a lot of them you can do, take less than that. There's one great stretch that I don't think I even showed here, but you go into the corner of a room and you just put both hands like this and kind of fall in. And it is a great exercise for really opening up the front, because we tend to, sitting in this position, get really tight in the front. Our pecs get tight, closes down the room in your shoulder, so people get shoulder pain and issues. So that's a great one you can do on your own. So shoulder blade squeezes. You're sitting at a red light, you're waiting for your doctor because they're always late. Squeeze your shoulder blades together, and that's a great way to sort of overcome that position of being forward. A standing row, and you can do that with bands. You can easily order bands on Amazon or get some where you're just doing a row like this, and you're really focusing on strengthening the muscles between your shoulder blades. So squeezing a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball between your shoulder blades, or imagining that. These are some other great posture exercises that you can just do at home. You don't need gym or anything else, and they're really effective, and again, they can overcome and help compensate a lot of that stuff. The next thing that I see a lot of, and this is, again, muscular bone joint health, is anterior knee pain, and I see that in women. I see it in 12-year-olds who have anterior knee pain playing sports. I see it in 20-year-olds who still have residual, and I see it a lot in 40s and 50s because we tend to wear the cartilage out underneath our kneecap in the front of our knee early. So it's something I see very commonly, and it's a hard problem to overcome, so this is something we can really prevent. And there are a lot of exercises, again, that we can do on our own that will help prevent this kind of pain and really allow you to do all the sports, go up and down stairs, play tennis, squash, everything else you enjoy without that pain. And here are a couple of exercises that can help. It's really focusing on a lot of hip strengthening, so glutes, the muscles on the outside of your hips that help rotate and move your hip to the side. These exercises here, and again, these are all available at that same website, Ortho Info, and if you Google hip or shoulder or neck, they'll come up, and they're great resources. But these are very effective in strengthening those muscles around your hip and lower back. It'll also help prevent low back pain, so this is a great way of kind of doing that. I have a lot of patients who come in and ask me, they're 20, they're 50, I just saw, I think my oldest patient so far this year, 99, come in and say, what? She was amazing. She had more energy than I think any other patient in the room or in the office that day. But they always ask me, what should I be doing for exercise? I want to prevent injury. What should I do? And I think that answer changes in time, except there's one very basic, and that's balance. So it's a balance of cardiovascular, meaning getting endurance, of strength training and balance, and balance in terms of standing on a leg or whatnot. And that changes all the time. So strength, stretching, and cardiovascular or endurance, I think, are really key things. And as I talk to someone in their 20s, it's going to be a different conversation than if you're in your 70s and how much you can alter that balance. So when our daughters, our young female, you're really looking at building a strong body and creating healthy habits. I'll tell you a quick story that my daughter is 9, almost 10, and she plays soccer, and she came home 2 weeks ago, and the next morning couldn't walk down the stairs. And I sort of asked what happened. And she said, well, yesterday we did strength training and soccer practice for an hour before soccer. And because all the other older girls took the smaller weights, they gave her a 25-pound weight to do squats. And so she, as a 9-year-old, was doing such strength training that the next day could barely walk down the stairs. She had to go sideways down. So for me, the lesson was, first of all, that's way overdoing it, and none of our daughters or sons should be doing that much strength training. But teaching my daughter, our kids, healthy habits so they understand when they can push themselves and do more safely, and when they should stop, because that is going to create injuries now, but also down the road. So that's a really important thing for younger women, is creating those healthy habits, eating, sleeping, but also knowing when to listen to your body and stop if there's an injury in the middle of a game, in a practice, or any other time, so that you're preventing these sports injuries. I see way too many sports injuries in our young girls, and we definitely want to prevent those. Middle age, we want to really think about maintaining our bone and our cardiovascular health. And so that's doing endurance, cardiovascular exercises, but also really looking at flexibility and strength, because as our estrogen levels go down, so does our flexibility. So we may not have had to think about that much when we were in our teenagers, but when we're in our 30s, 40s, and 50s, thinking about our flexibility is really key. So transitioning from heavy weightlifting to more stretch-based strength training, which would be a Pilates or yoga, you're still really focused on the strength training, but also working on lengthening is really critical to prevent injuries. And then as we're getting more mature, really thinking about strength, but in a different way. It's balance. Because if our balance does get worse over time, and if you have struggles with that, you're more likely to fall and have injuries. So that's a really critical thing to start to think about with time. We've definitely seen a big change in the last 2 years. I have a lot of patients who are working from home, their kids have been at home with them, and so finding programs that they can do at home I think is important. There are so many apps that you can use. Again, that link that I shared with you is a great resource, but there are a lot of ways that you can do it. I also think paying attention to previous injuries that you've had and really listening to your body. So if you're doing an exercise and it hurts, probably don't do it anymore. Right? I mean, there may be a reason. Again, a lot of squats and lunges. I have a lot of patients who come in and they're doing a squat challenge or lunges, and they have a lot of pain in the front of their knee, their low back. And we can modify those exercises, and we'll go through some of the ways in the office that they can modify. I'll have them see a physical therapist. You don't want your knees to drop in. You don't want your knees to go over your toes. So there are a lot of ways you can modify to do them safely, but if it's hurting in general, stop and let's figure out a way that you can strengthen those same muscles, but in a safe way. Nutritional needs. We've learned a lot about this today, and I think I'll just go through it very quickly so we're not talking too much. in general, it's eating it's having a balanced diet, right? It's sleep, it's eating well. I agree, I don't think we should jump on any fad diet of low fat, low sugar. I think it's really balancing it, but you do need to have fiber, you do need to have all the supplements, and it's pretty critical. But obviously avoiding, and I have a sweet tooth and eat French fries, but avoiding in general having a lot of those things in our diet is critical. Here are some of the supplements that I think are pretty critical, and if you want to take a picture of it, it may be easier. This is also another link to Harvard has a great website. Just resources, what supplements are important, where you can get them from, how you can get them in your daily foods, but also supplements that you can take for it. So iron, folic acid, calcium, magnesium, these are all going to be critical for bone and musculoskeletal health. And I kind of focus, these are ones that are really important for a younger adolescent, premenopausal individual. That changes in time, as everything else does. So when we go more to perimenopausal, the focus is going to be more on things like calcium, omega-3s and 6s, and we've heard a lot of this today. Flax seeds, soy, and these are things you can get with supplements or just altering or adjusting your food and your nutrition. So we're always taught when we were giving talks in residency and medical school, but also when I walk away from a talk, that I should always have kind of 3 points. So I was thinking today, what are some of those 3 points? I love the daydreaming, for one. I love balanced diet. And certainly listening to Dr. Nichols talk about sunscreen is always a good reminder. As you walk out the door every morning, sometimes I think I'm in the office all day and I'm never outside in the winter seeing any sun, but it's always a good reminder. So for me, for this talk, those take-homes are balancing in terms of exercise. Again, cardiovascular strength and stretching I think are really critical. And then preventing injury. And a lot of those things, the two most common things I see again are going to be that upper body symptoms that we all have, and posture. And it's hard, we all forget, we're all on our computers, but working on that every day, all the time. And it can be 30 seconds here or there where you're focusing on those things, make a big difference. And then doing a lot of the core hip strengthening really prevents knee pain, low back pain, hip pain. And so those kind of are some of the key take-homes. So that's it. If there are any questions, there are a lot of different ways to do it. And it really also depends on age. You definitely want to avoid too much soy. So I think it's a great supplement to have in your diet. Doing it through soy milk and things like that. But you also want to be aware of not doing too much of it because you can actually overdo soy. So I would look at it with a nutritionist, with your doctor, because it may depend also on other supplements that you're taking in terms of how much you do, what source you get. I think it's a key because I do see plenty of patients who come in, they kind of want to get this estrogen in a natural way, but then they end up taking it too much because they're taking it as a supplement, they're getting it from their doctor, or they're having it in soy milk. So I think it's something, again, to really balance and not do too much of it.
Thank you. That was
Thank
excellent.
you.
That was fantastic. Dr. Erica Kraus, you are next. Dr. Erica Kraus is with Glenville Medical Concierge, and she will be wrapping us all up for the whole series. Really, my gosh. Come on over.
Thank you. Okay, hi everyone. I think I've met most of you in the other talks. So I'm at Glenville Medical in Greenwich, and so this is our third talk. So the first talk I spoke about menopause, second talk was about testing, some of the tests that I do in my office, and then this talk I'm going to talk about lifestyle, which I know a lot of the speakers have spoken about already today. So just kind of go into them a little bit more. So the four kind of big topics in lifestyle would be sleep, diet, exercise, and stress reduction. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about each of those. So sleep, which we've definitely had a lot of talks about. I think the main thing with sleep is to make sure that you're getting enough sleep, and then there's also, ideal hours of sleeping, which would be either 10 to 6, 11 to 7, somewhere around there. You don't want to go to sleep too late. You don't want to wake up really early. Kind of want to get about 8 hours in general. This is going to vary for everybody, but those hours kind of work well with our circadian rhythm, with our hormones, and when cortisol is secreted, and it's just sort of, people generally feel best when they sleep about 8 hours at around that time. So sleep issues are definitely very common. Of course, people may have trouble falling asleep, trouble staying asleep, and that's common as we get older. So some of the things that you can do are some stress reduction techniques. One that I like is called progressive relaxation. So the idea is you start with your feet and you can tense up your toes. You can actually physically tense them up, or you can just kind of imagine your toes are really, really tense. And you kind of think about that for 15 seconds or so, and then okay, now they're relaxed. Now my toes are very relaxed, and you kind of get into it and you feel what it feels like when they're relaxed. And then you go to the rest of your feet and you do that, and you kind of work your way up your body. It might take about 10 minutes to do that. You might find that your mind wanders as you're doing it and you start thinking about other things. That's okay, just kind of bring yourself back to that, and that should kind of tire you out. Another technique that I like, it's a little strange, but I'm going to kind of demonstrate, is called alternate nostril breathing. And what it does is it slows down your heart rate and it relaxes you, and it can help sleep. I kind of like doing this one before the relaxation, the progressive relaxation. But what you're doing is you're taking your two fingers, you take your ring finger and your thumb on one hand, and you put them both on your nose. You're going to kind of seal off. I usually start with my breathing in through my right side. So I'll breathing in through the left. So I'll seal off the right, and I'll breathe in through the left side. I'll take a really deep breath. And while I'm doing that, you want to breathe in through your belly, like belly breaths. So normally when we breathe in, we kind of contract and our belly goes in. But when we do it this way, we push out through our belly. So we breathe in, and then you exhale and you switch, and you exhale through the right side and you bring your belly back in. And I'll do 5 breaths like that. On the 5th breath, I'm going to switch. So I'm going to breathe in again through the left, and then breathe out through the left. And then you switch sides to the right. I'll do that. I'll do 5, 5. So that's both sides, and I'll do that 3 times. There's different ways of doing it. Some people will alternate each breath, but I kind of like doing it that way. And just, it gets you focusing on your breathing, thinking about, and that's what you're thinking about, and you just kind of block all those other thoughts out. So I find that to be really helpful for getting, when I do that, I'm very tired after that, and I generally fall asleep. So that's the first one, that's sleep. Diet, I'm not going to go into too much in this because there was so much talk about it. So we kind of know, basically, I completely agree with Elizabeth that you got to, it doesn't have to be paleo. The one diet doesn't work for everybody. Just eat healthy, eat clean, stay away from sugar, stay away from the processed food, stay away from the pesticides, organic when you can. And that's probably the most important thing. And then, then we have exercise. So a variety of exercise. Dr. Vedasti talked about that, doing strength, doing some exercise, doing some cardio. You really want to do both. When you're older, definitely do not skimp on the strength. It's really important. Find something that you like. There's also, HIIT is where that's a high intensity exercise. But there's also really important as we get older is what's called zone 2 training. And the idea of that is it's a lower level of exercise. Your heart rate, it helps to keep your heart rate down, not while you're doing it, but after. Helps lower the blood pressure, and it helps our mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of our cells, to increase in number and efficiency. And it helps what's called metabolic flexibility, which is our ability to kind of partition fuel and use the switch from burning fat to burning carbohydrates. We need to be able to switch those, and when people are insulin resistant or diabetic, they're not able to do that very well. So zone 2, basically the idea is that you're exercising for a longer period of time, maybe 45 minutes to an hour at a lower level of intensity, which to really know that you're in zone 2 is kind of a complicated way of doing that. And people measure lactate levels, but you don't have to do that. You could kind of estimate it by saying like take 180 minus your age. So for me, that's like 129. And you can go up a little bit from that if you're pretty fit. So for me, I figure my zone 2, I think I'm around 135 beats per minute. and I just look at my Apple Watch and I try to, for me, you can run and biking, those are good, rowing, those are good exercises to get into zone 2. So I'm not going incredibly fast, I can have a conversation while I'm doing this, and it's just very important for longevity and health to do this type of exercise. You're not always doing HIIT training, you're not always going all out. And then the last pillar would be the stress reduction. So that's, again, taking time out. We're all gonna have stress in our life, and it's just a matter of not always being in a state of high stress. We need breaks from the stress. So making sure that you're with friends and you're doing things that are, that make you happy, not drinking too much alcohol, getting enough water. I think those are the things that are kind of most important. So I think that's it.
Thank you. That was great.
Good wrap up, all about lifestyle. All right, well, thank you all for coming. We are going to send a recording to those who couldn't make it. And you all, Roman Empire Farms is doing 20% off for our audience today. So get your CBD because that helps you sleep too. All right, thanks everybody.